I met Christina Williamson on June 16th, 2000. And we got married 3 years and 3 months later. The first big spark between us was on that night when we met. I asked her what music she liked, and she said, "I think my first love would be jazz." And we ended up going to a jazz club in Kansas City that same night, and 3 nights later as well. Now, one of the things I miss most about Kansas City is the jazz scene. It was always fun to go and catch an ensemble at a club, but our favorite thing was to go to a place called the Blue Room, especially on Blue Mondays, where I could bring my tenor saxophone and sign up to take a turn playing on stage. I was never the best player there, but in fact, I was regularly the worst player there. But it was fun, and everybody was really nice to this skinny white boy from the suburbs who never had any real reason to sing the blues. So let's talk about another jazz musician, one who had every reason to sing the blues, Billie Holiday. Now, I wish I had time to rehearse her entire bio here, because it is fascinating. But here are the highlights anyway. Billie was abandoned by her father as a baby and raised mostly by her mother. But that didn't last, because she ended up bouncing from relative to relative throughout her childhood. Tragically, she was raped at age 10, then sent to a school for bad girls. As a preteen, she found her mother again and worked with her in a bordello. Then, throughout her adulthood, she cycled through a series of abusive relationships. In her trauma, she began abusing a series of substances. First, alcohol and pot, then opium, then heroin. Billie Holiday, in a heartbreaking sense, was a quintessential jazz musician. But rather than combing through her timeline, I want to try and examine her life through her music, namely through 2 of her most famous songs. Let's start with God Bless the Child. Now, I would play it for you, but I don't think I'm allowed to do that in a video. So I'll read the lyrics for now, and I'll encourage you to find a recording of both of these songs afterward, and to listen to Billie sing them. So God Bless the Child by Billie Holiday and Arthur Herzog. Them that's got shall get, them that's not shall lose. So the Bible said, and it still is news. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own. That's got his own. The strong gets more while the weak ones fade. Empty pockets don't ever make the grade. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own. That's got his own. Money, you've got lots of friends crowding round the door. When you're gone and spending ends, they don't come no more. Now, this is obviously a very spiritual song, but the theology is not the kind you would find in a hymnal. However, if it sounds familiar at all, it may be from Jesus' teaching in Matthew 13:12 and Solomon's teaching in Proverbs 14:20. So here's Matthew 13:12. Whoever has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has, will be taken from him. In Proverbs 14:20. The poor are shunned, even by their neighbors, but the rich have many friends. Billie Holiday, Jesus, and Solomon all seem to kind of agree here, don't they? But what point are they really trying to make? That it's good for the rich to get richer and the poor to get poorer? That wealthy people deserve favor and low-income people deserve rejection? That doesn't sound right. But sometimes scriptures show us how things should be, like whenever Jesus talks about the kingdom. And sometimes it holds up a mirror to show us how things are. I think this is what Jesus and Solomon are doing. And I also think it's what Billie is doing. When she says, God bless the child that's got his own, she means it sarcastically. The lyrics actually came out of an argument with her mother over money. And it meant that the more you need it, the less you're going to get it. She ended up making the song a staple of her short and explosive singing career, as a battle cry for equality in a society hardwired for injustice. Billie's other famous song bemoans an even more tragic reality. Once the impact of this song was recognized, Billie began closing all of her shows with it. Just as the song was about to begin, waiters would stop serving, the lights in the club would be turned off, and a single pin spotlight would illuminate Billie on the stage. During the musical introduction, Holiday would stand with her eyes closed, as if she was evoking a prayer. The song is called Strange Fruit. Here are the lyrics, written by Abel Mirapol. Southern trees bear strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root. Black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Pastoral scene of the gallant South, the bulging eyes and the twisted mouth, scent of magnolia, sweet and fresh, then the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here is fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rot, for the trees to drop. Here is a strange and bitter crop. Billie felt deeply in her bones the oppression of slavery. Just as if she had been working on a cotton plantation when she saw a famous photo of a multiple lynching and read the poem about it by Abel Mirapol. She was one of those hanging black men in her heart. Her relationships, her lifestyle, and her career often led her to feel disgusted by the black life, as she called it. Constantly dominated, constantly disrespected, even while being idolized for her talent. It's hard to know what to do with people's life stories. It's obvious I don't really know what to do with them. I've always had trouble with Billie Holiday's story. Should we admire her or pity her? The first time I preached about Billie was back in 2010 in the church we planted in downtown Springfield, Missouri. Every time I preached there were two posters behind me, and they were not what you might expect. One was a photo of legendary saxophonist Charlie Parker, and the other was of trumpeter Dizzy Gillespie. They were partners in the groundbreaking bebop genre, and good friends for a while, but their stories could not be more different. Charlie Parker was born in 1920 and became addicted to heroin at age 15. He died at age 30, but he looked like he was 60. Dizzy Gillespie was born in 1917, stayed clean his whole life, and died at 76. Is Dizzy a hero? Is Charlie a villain? Is Billie Holiday a hero or a villain? Or are they all just people? Just stories worth knowing. Whatever label we put on these characters, I believe we are better people for knowing their stories. And unlike Hollywood stories, these authentic biographies don't usually resolve. Billie Holiday's life never resolved. It just sounds like one jarring chord after the next. Addiction abuse, racism, fatigue, illness, prison. Even a trained ear has trouble finding the harmony. In real life, a lot of stuff happens that doesn't make sense. It's usually melodic but dissonant. Loss, pandemic, police brutality, rioting, divisiveness, fear of death. Life is a lot of things, but it's almost never tidy. One of my favorite stories about this comes from author Donald Miller in a book called Blue Like Jazz. He writes, and I quote, There is something beautiful about a billion stars held steady by a God who knows what he is doing. They hang there, the stars, like notes on a page of music, free-form verse, silent mystery swirling in the blue like jazz. And as I lay there, it occurred to me that God is up there somewhere. Of course, I had always known he was, but this time I felt it. I realized it. The way a person realizes they are hungry or thirsty. The knowledge of God seeped out of my brain and into my heart. I imagined him looking down on this earth, half angry because his beloved mankind had cheated on him, had committed adultery, and yet hopelessly in love with her, drunk with love for her. I never liked jazz music because jazz music doesn't resolve. But I was outside the Baghdad Theater in Portland one night, and I saw a man playing the saxophone. I stood there for 15 minutes, and he never opened his eyes. After that, I liked jazz music. End quote. Jazz is what we're given. We may dream in pop or country or classical or rock or R&B or bluegrass, but we live in jazz. The question is, are we going to choose to see God in it, to see real humanity and real divinity in it? No matter how messy, no matter how dissonant, no matter how mysterious. The fact is, we do not have the power to bring resolution, but we can bring love. We can bring compassion. With God's help, we can choose to see through the mess and find the melody. And then we sing along.